Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Drama going down last night as Vitality Circuit in EMEA gets underway, but Derke is not especially happy about the way that things were handled in the venue itself with the lack of a crowd on the Wednesday evening. Yes, there will be a crowd for the rest of the weekends, but Vitality not very happy about the way that Riot have handled this one so far. VCT Scrims back on the menu as well. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into as always. Some roster drama to start out the day as well, and it really starts here with, well, 2G. This is Zap. So Zap, of course, play for 2G. They have been horrifically bad now for quite some time. And as of yesterday, he decided that he used to have 2G in his name and in his bio and this type of stuff, and it's still in his header. But he just removed it. And people were like, hang on, have they dropped him? What's going on? Like, is he gone? Like, what's, is Zap going to stay? Is he going to go? What's happening? Of course, 2G have been terrible. According to reports, he's just decided to quit. He's just like, you know what, I've had enough of this. And presumably, he's just told the team, because of course he in-game leads those guys, that like he's had enough. He's not going to play with them anymore, and apparently the decision has surprised the team. He sent a WhatsApp message to teammates and staff, and he removed all mentions of 2G on social media. The reason for the player's decision is unknown to this report. 2G was taken by surprise with this decision, and despite this, the organization is working to find a replacement because they've got a game to play at a couple of days' time. They play on Sunday against Loud, so 2G apparently had nothing to declare on the matter. So it's bad when your in-game leader just says, you know what guys, it's so bad, I'm just gonna quit. And it's tough to say because 2G of course get promoted, they become the guest team, they win Ascension last year, they did very well to achieve it. But, obviously something's happened. Either their roster is just terrible, or things internally from a management perspective haven't really gone to plan. Who knows? But, the roster drama happening in a way that you don't usually see. Usually it's the player getting dropped, rather than the player dropping the team, as it were, in this kind of scenario. Now, quickly on China, they're getting underway again, I think, today. I think there might be one game currently ongoing. Yeah, so Gen.G up against Trace Esports. We've got TEC versus Tyler as well coming up shortly, as well in a couple of days. But this is the game for today, and it's Gen.G 0-0. Currently it's 4-5 on the Lotus in favour of Trace Esports in the opening part, but Gen.G bringing a bit of a comeback. So yeah, that's the game there. Pretty big game actually, because Gen.G have started off 0-2. So if they lose that one, it obviously ain't looking good for them. And Trace Esports, given their success, they made it all the way, let's not forget, to Masters Bangkok. Didn't have the greatest performance in Bangkok, but they lost to T1 and the end lost to G2, who actually turned out to be rather good teams at that tournament, as we well know. So, obviously Trace, after losing to Worlds, will hope to bounce back, but pretty big series there for both parties. This, though, was the big drama of yesterday happening in Europe, because Vitality, they debuted their new team. Of course, they were surprised, at least they surprised the fans, to make a change. Trex, of course, was gone, and they brought in Syvov, and, well, he absolutely decimated the opposition, right? Now, you might argue, oh, well, you're joining a great team, you're going to play well. But still, the level of this performance, certainly from a debut perspective, was particularly impressive. And I think this is really why people are like, okay, hang on a second here, Vitality. The change after Bangkok seems controversial, given that they did pretty well, but not well enough. But Zyvov, if he plays like this, again, another nationality on the team, it's all looking rather good, because they dominated the Lotus 13-2. The split was 13-9 in the end, but they still destroyed them on the attacking half. But then on the game 2, Zyvov on the open was 23-8. Absolutely crushed Giantex. And yeah, Giantex aren't the best, sure. But, and I think, is it Cloud who has like this mega term deal? He's got to be thinking that wasn't the best idea. But, yeah, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Vitality just absolutely decimate Giantex off the face of the planet. And then the second game, Carmine Corps came to play. They played BBL. They closed out the Icebox, right? Of course, that was what that tweet was about, because famously what happened a few years ago now on Icebox, as you guys know, Fnatic versus Loud. But after the game 1 win for KC, wow, 13-3 on Icebox, Elite goes 20-2, like just in a mesmerizing game there from the Turkish player. But after that, the Turkish team, at least semi-Turkish team now, they've still got 2 Turkish players left, won the Pearl 13-11, and then won the Fracture 13-8. So, yeah, real tough loss for KC, given the way that they dominated the game 1 to then, collapse and lose the series regardless. So it's, of course, early days in Europe, but this is how things look so far. Vitality at 1-0, their round count already looking very promising. KC actually +3 3 in terms of round count, despite the fact that they lost. So, you know, they'll maybe still be fine. They've got an achievable group. But Vitality's roster change seemingly bearing some fruit already. But this was the tweet from Derke as he says, you know, GG's 2-0 versus Giant X. Kind of depressing though, playing without a crowd in the arena. Could have played this from home or from Finland too, he says. Zivov says my duelist. So, yeah, interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, the pro teams, they don't play that many games a season. Certainly not nowadays. I think Vitality will play plenty of games because they'll probably qualify for the big tournaments. So, you know, they get plenty of games in front of a crowd. But there are some teams out there who play lots of games. I think, was it the BBL team that were complaining about this as well? And I totally get it if it's true that they play like 4 times on the Wednesday when there are no fans, right? Like, fans want to come watch the team. But on those days, they're not selling tickets, right? And so, you know, it's definitely controversial because, you know, this was even the moments before the games where you had the boys were like waving to the crowd. The crowd didn't exist. They weren't showing any pictures of the crowd. And for good reason. So I think the players were just taking the mick really. They're waving to the stands, but there's no one in the stands. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I think from the fans' perspective and from the players' perspective, it's not really good for anyone because Derke wants to play in front of a crowd. And as he says, yeah, like, what's the point even being here when I could play from home, I could play from Finland, and sure, it's not LAN, but, like, if you're going to do LAN, have a crowd. I think that's the general point. Now, it's not necessary, maybe, and the game's still happening regardless. And if there were tons of games happening, then I would kind of understand it. But when there are fewer games, then certain fans of certain teams surely will want to come and attend. So kind of confused why not, but in the end, Vitality got the victory, and Zivov made a great debut. Game 1 and Game 2 were both exceptionally good as well. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, there's been talk about tickets elsewhere as well. It's not just about what's happened in EMEA at the event in Berlin. It's also Masters Toronto. Is it possible to get a ticket? Aaron says, hey, please, guys, if you win and qualify, you'll be able to get me a family and friends ticket. So I guess we'll see if that goes anywhere. But of course, Zekken was there in the replies too. Foxy9, just quickly to note, I probably could have thrown it in earlier when we talked about some of the roster changes, but of course he got dropped from Gen.G, controversially so, and since then they've not been looking great, and now he's back to #1 rank in Asia Pacific. So look, okay, whatever, it's a championship trophy. It's obviously you're not gonna make $1 million from this, but he has been frying lately, so I think he's just sending a little bit of a subtle message there, really. So you know, obviously people in the replies are gonna say, and for good reason, look, congrats, why do they drop you type thing. And to be fair, I have the same questions, but I'm a bit of a Foxy9 fan, so I'm probably going to be saying that. Hardest, of course, gives his thoughts as well on the new Vitality roster, but I did want to share before we close the video a couple of scrim pieces of drama over the last couple of days. Now, you guys may have seen this. At the time, I was busy covering other things. But Rocket Bullets. So Rocket Bullets did the spreadsheets. So you guys know there'd been a bit of drama with Rocket Bullets back in the day. And he had like this big crash out on Twitter a week and a half or so ago anyway. And he deactivated and now he's back. Now, apparently the deactivation was due to this guy, Ari VALORANT, who also is basically the VCT Scrims guy, apparently. And it seems like there's good enough evidence for that to be true. So Rocket Bullets kind of exposed him for various comments that he made, and Rocket Bullets then deactivated the account, and these guys were just beefing, and I think beefing over probably fairly reasonable reasons, to be fair. And Ari VALORANT then did this tweet and says, please read, sorry for those I disappointed. That account has now been deleted, so I don't really know what he said. All I saw is there are plenty of N-words flying around, and then VCT Scrims eventually deactivated the account and looked like, okay, that was going to be that. Rocket Bullets came in, they had a bit of drama, they both deactivated, or at least VCT Scrims did, and then they called it a day. But as of a couple of days ago, VCT Scrims is back. So look, at the end of the day, there's going to be drama between the personal stuff. I don't really care about VCT Scrims account getting personal. It's just, post the scrims. People want to see them. So anyway, the account's back, and it's drama. It's Valorant drama. It is what it is. But we do have some scrims back in business. So, a couple of interesting results. NRG played M80, that was 10-6. Sim were up 12-6 on someone. Qubit were up 7-1 on someone. 2G were playing. I mean, who knows? They won 5 rounds. It's better than normal, to be fair. But, look, that was maybe without Zap as well, so whatever they're doing. NRG then seemingly went down 10-12 to M80. So it was 10-6, and then it became 10-12. So kind of notable. I wouldn't call it a collapse exactly. This was also interesting. T1 played Edward Gaming, and it was 16-6. Just worth keeping in mind, because, of course, the new T1 T1 team. They won Masters Bangkok. Edward Gaming have not looked, they had an okay result. They looked like they were going to win it at one point at Bangkok, but internally, even in their own region lately, again, they've gone back to this kind of weird no man's land where they're always going to somehow win, but never really looked that impressive achieving it. M80 were also down 12-3 to EG. M80, of course, came second in the most recent Challengers Championships. They lost to SR Black in the finals. So, EG taking them down 12-3. Notable. Maybe EG making some progress. Of course, EG's first game was a layup against 2G, so, they got the job done there. But, M80 was still a pretty impressive Challengers team, so maybe it's something at least to think about. We also had Cloud9 play Crew, and that at this point was, 9-7 in favour of the Latin American team. So maybe not too much to read into that. Just the final thing to say, that the Ascension teams will be getting their bundles in the game. Now, you could argue they could have happened by now, let's be honest. It's been a long time since the Ascension matches happened, and I know that there are other priorities. And I'm sure there are reasons why things take a bit longer with with these bundles, the way that they handle them, because they're not full-time teams, they're guest slots, if Leo Faria still calls them that. But, this is what they're going to do. I just think at the end of the day, if they really wanted to get these skins in the game earlier, they probably could have done. But, look, they're going to arrive apparently the beginning of April. There's going to be previews soon. I don't think it's a nice touch, really. The one thing that I'm not is a shame exactly, but, I kind of wish that it was still Sinprasa Gaming rather than Nongshim Reds, because, the skin for this is the bundle's going to be like a million other bundles that we have. There's so many teams that are red, white, and black, right? But, not many teams have the Sinprasa Gaming logo. So very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.